What if the wilderness you trust to be beautiful is hiding something unspeakable? What if, in the heart of Siberia, 7 experienced hikers, led by a woman known for her courage, were suddenly consumed by a terror so intense it left their bodies scattered, their faces frozen in horror, and a single survivor unable to speak of what she'd witnessed? Tonight, we confront the chilling truth behind the Khamar Daban Incident, a real-life nightmare that rivals the darkest legends, where the line between natural disaster and something far more sinister is razor-thin. Forget everything you think you know about safety, preparation, and survival. The events on that mountain defy explanation. Sudden bleeding, convulsions, desperate screams in the freezing fog, and a survivor whose memories are shattered by trauma. Was it a freak storm, a toxic agent, or something the mountain itself refuses to reveal? The answers are elusive, the details disturbing, and the silence of the survivor only deepens the shadows. Before we uncover the secrets that authorities tried to bury and explore the theories that will haunt your thoughts, let me ask you a favor. Most people who watch these stories aren't subscribed to the channel. If you crave the truth behind the world's most disturbing mysteries and want to be the first to uncover secrets that others fear to tell, hit that subscribe button now. Don't miss out on the stories that will keep you questioning what's real long after the screen goes dark. Stay with me until the end, because what happened in the Khamar Daban Mountains isn't just a tragedy, it's a warning. And once you know the truth, you'll never look at the wild the same way again. I've always been fascinated by real-life horror stories, but nothing prepared me for the Khamar Daban Incident. It's often called the Dyatlov Pass of southern Siberia, and for good reason. The details are just as chilling, and the questions left behind are just as haunting. In August 1993, a group of 7 experienced hikers set out to cross the Khamar Daban mountain range, a remote and unforgiving stretch of wilderness near Lake Baikal. Led by Lyudmila Korovina, a respected instructor, the group was made up of 6 young students, all physically prepared and eager for the challenge. What was supposed to be an ambitious 220-kilometer trek turned into one of the most mysterious mountain deaths in modern history. The plan was straightforward. Start from the edge of Lake Baikal, climb to the summit of Kangula, and meet up with another group led by Korovina's daughter a few days later. The hikers were well-equipped, trained, and familiar with the region's unpredictable weather. But as they ascended, the weather shifted violently. Heavy rain and brutal winds battered the group, dropping the temperature below freezing. Their progress slowed, and even simple tasks, like lighting a fire, became nearly impossible. Still, they pressed on, reaching the summit despite the worsening conditions. It was during the descent that the real nightmare began. No one knows exactly what happened next, but what's known is disturbing. One by one, the hikers began to collapse. Some started bleeding from their eyes and mouths, others convulsed or screamed incoherently. The chaos was sudden and overwhelming. Lyudmila Korovina, the group's leader, was the first to die. Her body found later with signs of a heart attack. The rest of the group scattered in panic, each succumbing to the elements or whatever. Mysterious force had struck them down. Only Valentina Utochenko, the youngest of the group, managed to survive, though she was found days later in a state of shock, covered in blood and barely able to speak. When rescuers finally arrived, the scene was like something out of a nightmare. The bodies were scattered across the mountainside, some showing signs of hypothermia, others with unexplained injuries. The official report listed hypothermia as the main cause of death, but investigators couldn't ignore the strange details. The suddenness of the deaths, the strange bleeding, and the sheer terror etched on the faces of the victims. The case quickly became known as the Khamar Daban Incident, drawing comparisons to the infamous Dyatlov Pass tragedy and fueling endless speculation about what really happened on that mountain. The survivor, Valentina, was discovered by a group of kayakers who heard her desperate cries from the riverbank. She was incoherent, her skin bruised and torn, her clothes soaked in blood and mud. The kayakers described her as wild-eyed, unable to explain what had happened, only repeating fragments about her friends dying one after another. It took days before she could even begin to describe the horror she'd witnessed, and even then, her account was fragmented and filled with gaps. She remembered the sudden illness, the panic, the screams, but not much else. The trauma had left her memory fractured, and investigators could only piece together the timeline from what little she could recall. The authorities didn't launch a search right away. Nearly 3 weeks passed before a formal operation began, by which time the bodies had already been exposed to the harsh Siberian elements. When helicopters finally located the site, the scene was even more confusing. The hikers' gear was scattered, some of the bodies were partially undressed, a classic sign of paradoxical undressing in severe hypothermia, while others showed injuries that didn't fit the official explanation. The investigators were left with more questions than answers, and the Khamar Daban incident quickly became a magnet for conspiracy theories and speculation. Rumors spread fast among the local hiking community. Some insisted that the group had encountered a rare and deadly weather phenomenon, like a sudden drop in temperature or a freak windstorm. Others whispered about military experiments gone wrong or exposure to some kind of nerve agent being tested in the remote Siberian wilderness. The fact that the region had a history of secretive military activity only added fuel to the fire. There were even those who believed the mountain itself was cursed, pointing to old Buryat legends about spirits that haunted the Khamar Daban range. Forensic reports didn't help much. While most of the victims had died from hypothermia, there were unexplained injuries, internal bleeding, bruising, and in some cases, bleeding from the eyes and ears. Lyudmila Korovina, the leader, was the only one whose cause of death was listed as a heart attack, but even that raised questions. She was an experienced mountaineer, known for her resilience and calm under pressure. The idea that she would suddenly succumb to panic or fear didn't fit with what people knew about her. Every new detail seemed to contradict the last, making the truth harder to find. The similarities to the Dyatlov Pass incident were impossible to ignore. Both groups were made up of skilled, well-prepared hikers. Both tragedies happened in remote Russian mountains, under mysterious and violent circumstances. And in both cases, the official explanations, hypothermia, avalanche, felt incomplete, leaving room for darker theories. Online forums and late-night radio shows picked up the story, and soon the Khamar Daban tragedy was being dissected by amateur sleuths and professional researchers alike. But unlike Dyatlov, the Khamar Daban case never received the same level of international attention. There were no documentaries, no government-backed investigations, just a handful of reports and the haunted testimony of a single survivor. Over time, the story faded from the headlines, becoming more of a cautionary tale among Russian hikers than a global mystery. Yet for those who lived near the mountains, or who had lost friends and family in the tragedy, the questions never went away. Years later, people still debate what really happened on that mountain. Some point to the weather, noting that the Khamar Daban range is notorious for sudden, violent storms. The area's proximity to Lake Baikal means that conditions can shift in minutes, turning a clear day into a deadly ordeal. Others focus on the possibility of toxins, maybe something in the water, or a chemical leak from a nearby facility. There were rumors of Novichok, a nerve agent being developed in Russia at the time, and some believe the hikers might have accidentally come into contact with it. There's also the theory of radiation exposure. It's not unheard of in remote parts of Russia, and some of the symptoms, bleeding, confusion, sudden collapse, could fit. But no evidence of radiation was ever found at the site, and the region remains popular with hikers to this day. For many, the most unsettling possibility is that the group simply fell victim to a chain of small, natural disasters. Bad weather, exhaustion, and panic feeding off each other until even the most experienced leader couldn't save them. What makes the Khamar Daban incident so disturbing is how quickly everything unraveled. One moment, the group was together, pushing through the cold and rain, focused on getting down the mountain. The next, they were scattered and dying, their bodies found in positions that suggested desperation and confusion. Some had tried to crawl for help, others seemed to have simply given up. The survivor, Valentina, never fully recovered from the trauma. She avoided interviews and rarely spoke about what happened. Her memories, too, fractured and painful to share. The families of the victims were left with little comfort. The official investigation closed quickly, blaming the weather and the group's exhaustion. But that explanation never sat right with those who knew the hikers. They were tough, well-trained, and had survived worse conditions before. The idea that they would all collapse so suddenly, with only one survivor, just didn't add up. For many, the Khamar Daban tragedy remains a reminder of how little we really understand about the wilderness and about the limits of human endurance. The mountain itself seems to hold onto secrets. Locals say that the weather isn't the only thing to fear in the Khamar Daban range. There are stories of strange lights at night, odd animal behavior, and a feeling of being watched that descends on hikers when the fog rolls in. Some believe the area is cursed, pointing to old Buryat legends about spirits that lure travelers off the path. Whether these tales are superstition or something more, they add another layer of unease to an already chilling story. Even experienced hikers avoid certain parts of the range now, especially when the weather turns. The site of the tragedy has become a place of quiet respect, marked by a simple memorial. Every year, a few people leave flowers or small tokens for the lost group, hoping to bring peace to the restless mountain. But the sense of mystery lingers, and the questions about what really happened have never been fully answered. For those who study unsolved mysteries, the Khamar Daban incident is a case that refuses to be neatly explained. The mix of natural danger and unexplained details makes it a magnet for speculation. Some researchers have tried to reconstruct the group's final hours, analyzing weather data, autopsy reports, and Valentina's fragmented memories. But every theory, whether it's a sudden weather event, a toxic exposure, or something stranger, runs into the same problem. Nothing fits all the facts. There's always something left unexplained, some detail that doesn't make sense. The psychological toll on Valentina was immense. Survivors of such events often struggle with guilt and confusion, but her case was especially severe. She lost 6 friends in a matter of hours, witnessed their suffering, and was left alone in the wilderness to process the horror. In interviews years later, she described feeling detached from reality, unable to trust her own memories. The trauma shaped the rest of her life, a shadow she could never quite escape. The story of the Khamar Daban tragedy spread quietly through the hiking community, passed from one group to another as a warning about the unpredictability of nature. Guides and instructors would mention it during training, reminding new hikers that even the most prepared teams can be overwhelmed by the mountains. The details, sudden illness, unexplained injuries, the lone survivor, became part of local lore, fueling both fear and fascination. For some, it was a reason to avoid the region altogether. For others, it was a challenge, a reminder of the risks that come with true adventure. Despite the passage of time, the site of the incident remains unchanged. The forest has grown back around the area, and the scars left by the tragedy have faded into the landscape. But for those who know the story, the mountain feels different. A little colder, a little less welcoming. The sense of unease is hard to shake, especially when the weather turns and the fog creeps in, swallowing the trail and blurring the line between memory and myth. Some hikers who visited the Khamar Daban range since the tragedy report feeling an inexplicable heaviness in the air. They talk about sudden chills, even on warm days, and the sense that something is watching from the trees. A few have claimed to hear distant screams or see fleeting shadows at dusk, though skeptics chalk it up to nerves and the power of suggestion. Still, the Mountain's reputation has only grown over the years, and the story of the lost hikers is never far from people's minds. The official records remain sparse. Aside from a few autopsy reports and statements from rescuers, there's little documentation about what happened. The authorities closed the case quickly, eager to move on from the negative attention. But among locals and seasoned mountaineers, the Khamar Daban incident is still discussed in hushed tones. It's a reminder that even in the age of satellite phones and GPS, nature can still humble and terrify us in ways we can't fully explain. Some of the most unsettling details come from the rescuers who first arrived at the scene. They described an unnatural silence, broken only by the wind and the crunch of their boots on the frozen ground. The bodies were found in strange positions, some huddled together as if seeking warmth, others sprawled out as if they'd tried to run. The scattered gear suggested a desperate attempt to survive, but also a sense of chaos, like the group had been overtaken by something sudden and overwhelming. Even the most seasoned searchers admitted they'd never seen anything like it. The survivor's account, though fragmented, hinted at a rapid and terrifying decline. She remembered her friends suddenly becoming sick, some collapsing, others screaming or convulsing. There was no time to react, no clear explanation. The panic spread quickly, and within hours, she was alone. Her memories of the descent are blurred, images of rain, mud, and the faces of her friends twisted in fear. The trauma was so deep that even years later, she struggled to separate what she actually saw from what her mind invented to fill in the gaps. Theories about what happened continue to multiply. Some believe the group ate something toxic, perhaps wild plants or contaminated water, that triggered a deadly reaction. Others point to the possibility of a sudden drop in air pressure or oxygen, a rare but not impossible event. In mountain environments, there are even those who suggest psychological factors played a role, that fear and exhaustion combined to create mass panic, amplifying every symptom and making escape impossible. But none of these explanations fully account for the speed and violence of the tragedy. The Khamar Daban incident stands out because it defies easy answers. Unlike other mountain disasters, where the cause is eventually traced to weather, equipment failure, or human error, this case remains stubbornly unresolved. The lack of clear evidence, the bizarre symptoms, and the survivor's shattered memory all combine to create a sense of unease that lingers long after the facts are laid out. It's a story that refuses to be put to rest, haunting anyone who tries to make sense of it. For the families, the lack of closure has been its own kind of torment. They've had to live with rumors and speculation, with strangers picking apart the final moments of their loved ones. Some have tried to find comfort in the idea that it was just a tragic accident, a perfect storm of bad luck and harsh conditions. Others can't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play, that the truth was buried along with the bodies on that cold mountainside. The questions left behind have shaped their grief, making it harder to move on. Over the years, a few journalists and independent researchers have tried to reopen the case, hoping to uncover new evidence or at least offer a more satisfying explanation. But the trail has gone cold. The survivor, Valentina, has kept her distance, unwilling or unable to relive the nightmare in detail. The official files remain locked away, and the authorities show little interest in revisiting the tragedy. As time passes, the mystery only deepens, and the Khamar Daban range remains a place where answers are as elusive as the mountain mist. There's something about unsolved mysteries that keeps people coming back, searching for patterns or clues that others might have missed. Online forums dedicated to the Khamar Daban incident are filled with theories, maps, and timelines, each trying to reconstruct the group's final hours. Some users pore over satellite images of the area, looking for hidden details. Others analyze the autopsy reports, searching for inconsistencies or signs of foul play. The lack of definitive answers only makes the story more compelling, drawing in new voices every year. For locals, though, the fascination is tinged with sadness. The mountains are a source of pride and beauty, but also a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. Guides warn visitors to respect the weather, to never travel alone, and to always be prepared for the unexpected. The story of the lost hikers is told as both a caution and a memorial, a way to honor those who died and to remind everyone that the wilderness is never truly tamed. As the years have passed, the Khamar Daban range has drawn a new kind of visitor, those who are fascinated by the macabre, by the idea of walking in the footsteps of the lost hikers. Some come to pay their respects, leaving flowers or small tokens at the site. Others are drawn by curiosity, hoping to feel a connection to the mystery or to experience the same sense of unease that others have described. The area has quietly become a destination for dark tourism, though most who visit leave with more questions than answers. Despite the tragedy, the region remains popular with seasoned hikers and adventurers. The landscape is breathtaking, with dense forests, rushing rivers, and sweeping views of Lake Baikal. But even the most beautiful scenery can't erase the shadow cast by the events of 1993. For those who know the story, every gust of wind and sudden drop in temperature is a reminder of how quickly things can turn. The mountain demands respect, and the memory of the lost group lingers like a warning in the cold Siberian air. Some say that the Khamar Daban tragedy was simply a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Others believe it was fate, that the group was drawn into something they couldn't have prepared for or understood. The survivors' silence only adds to the sense of mystery, leaving outsiders to fill in the blanks with their own fears and theories. The truth, whatever it is, remains locked away in the memories of one woman and the silent slopes of the mountain. What's undeniable is the impact the incident has had on everyone touched by it. For the families, the pain is ongoing, a mix of loss, confusion, and unanswered questions. For the hiking community, it's a sobering lesson about the dangers of the wild, a reminder that even the best preparation can't guarantee safety. And for those who study unsolved mysteries, it's a story that refuses to let go. A chilling example of how little we sometimes know about the world around us. In the years since, a few documentaries and articles have tried to bring the Khamar Daban incident to a wider audience, but it has never reached the same level of fame as Dyatlov Pass. Maybe it's because there were fewer victims, or because the survivor never spoke publicly in detail. Or maybe it's because the story is just too unsettling, too open-ended, to fit neatly into a headline. Those who dig deeper often find themselves lost in a maze of conflicting reports and dead ends, with each new detail raising more questions than it answers. Still, the legend grows. Every so often, a new theory will surface. A forgotten military experiment, a rare weather event, a supernatural explanation, and the cycle of speculation begins again. The Khamar Daban range, with its beauty and danger, continues to attract both the curious and the cautious. The story of the lost hikers remains a dark thread woven into the fabric of the mountain, a reminder that some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Sometimes, hikers who pass through the area leave notes or messages at the site, hoping to connect with the lost group or to find some sense of closure for themselves. These small acts of remembrance add a human touch to the story, a way of acknowledging the lives that were cut short and the questions that remain. The memorial is simple: a few stones, a plaque, sometimes a faded photograph, but it stands as a quiet testament to the enduring power of the tragedy. The Khamar Daban incident is a story that lingers in the mind long after you first hear it. It's not just the mystery of how 6 young hikers died, but the way the details refuse to settle into a tidy narrative. Every theory leaves something unexplained. Every account is tinged with uncertainty. For those who have walked the same trails or looked out over the same valleys, the sense of unease is hard to shake. The mountain keeps its secrets, and the silence of the survivor only deepens the shadows. For some, the Khamar Daban tragedy has become a symbol of the limits of human understanding. It's a reminder that even in an age of technology and information, there are still places and moments that defy explanation. The story is retold around campfires and in online forums, each version colored by the teller's own fears and beliefs. Some focus on the science, others on the supernatural, but all agree on one thing. What happened on that mountain was both terrifying and deeply sad. As the years pass, the details may blur, but the core of the story remains the same. A group of young people full of hope and adventure set out into the wild and never came back. Their loss is felt not just by their families, but by anyone who has ever looked at a map and dreamed of exploring the unknown. The Khamar Daban Incident is a warning, a mystery, and a tragedy all at once. A story that endures because it refuses to be fully understood. Some nights, when the wind howls through the trees and the fog settles low over the mountains, locals say you can almost hear echoes of the past. It's easy to imagine the lost hikers struggling through the darkness, calling out for help that never came. The landscape itself seems to remember, holding on to the memory of that August in 1993. For those who live nearby, the story is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a part of the region's identity, woven into the fabric of daily life. Even now, experienced guides sometimes pause at certain points along the trail, glancing over their shoulders or urging groups to move a little faster as the weather shifts. The sense of unease is subtle, but persistent, a quiet reminder that the wilderness is never truly safe. The Khamar Daban Range remains breathtakingly beautiful, but beneath the surface, the shadow of the tragedy lingers, shaping the way people move through the mountains and the stories they tell about them. For hikers who know the story, every step through the Khamar Daban Range feels heavier. The silence of the forest, the sudden gusts of cold wind, even the way the light fades early in the valleys, all of it carries a weight that's hard to describe. Some say they feel watched, others just sense an unspoken warning in the air. It's not enough to keep people away, but it does make them more careful, more respectful of the unpredictable forces at play. The tragedy has also inspired a kind of quiet solidarity among those who venture into the mountains. There's a shared understanding that nature can be both breathtaking and brutal, and that survival sometimes comes down to luck as much as skill. The memory of the lost group serves as a reminder to look out for each other, to never underestimate the wild, and to accept that some questions will never have satisfying answers. Every so often, someone will suggest reopening the investigation, hoping that new technology or fresh eyes might finally solve the mystery. But with each passing year, the chances of finding definitive answers grow slimmer. The evidence has faded, memories have blurred, and those closest to the tragedy have either moved on or chosen to keep their pain private. Still, the urge to understand what happened remains strong, driven by a mix of curiosity, empathy, and the simple human need for closure. For now, the Khamar Daban incident remains an open wound, one that refuses to heal completely. It's a story that gets retold, not just for the sake of the lost hikers, but as a way of grappling with the unknown. In a world that often feels mapped and measured, the mountains stand as a reminder that some places and some stories will always be shrouded in mystery. And for those who walk the trails today, the legend of the Khamar Daban tragedy is never far behind. The survivor, Valentina, has become a figure of both sympathy and mystery. People wonder what she remembers and whether she knows more than she's ever shared. Some say her silence is an act of self-preservation, a way to shield herself from memories too painful to revisit. Others believe she's protecting the memory of her friends, refusing to let their final moments become fodder for endless speculation. Whatever the reason, her decision to stay quiet has only deepened the intrigue around the case. In the end, the Khamar Daban incident is a story about the limits of knowledge and the power of the unknown. It's about how quickly life can change and how even the most experienced and prepared people can be blindsided by forces beyond their control. The tragedy left scars on a remote Siberian mountain, but it also left questions that echo far beyond the wilderness. For those who seek answers, the story is both a challenge and a warning, a reminder that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved. For those who have lost loved ones to the mountains, the Khamar Daban tragedy is a painful reminder of how fragile life can be. Anniversaries are marked quietly, with private rituals and moments of reflection. Some families still visit the site, leaving flowers or lighting candles, hoping that their gestures bring a measure of peace. Others avoid the subject entirely, unable to face the memories that the story stirs up. The impact of the incident ripples outward, touching not only those directly involved, but anyone who has ever felt the call of the wild. As time goes on, the legend of the lost hikers becomes part of the mountain's identity. Guides tell the story to new trekkers, not to frighten them, but to instill a sense of respect for the land and its dangers. The Khamar Daban range stands as both a place of beauty and a silent witness to tragedy. The story endures, not just because of the mystery, but because it speaks to something universal: the longing for answers, the pain of loss, and the enduring hope that someday the truth will come to light. The Khamar Daban incident has also changed the way people approach adventure in the region. Safety protocols have become stricter, and experienced guides are more vigilant about monitoring weather and group dynamics. There's a heightened awareness that even the best equipment and training can't guarantee survival when the unexpected happens. For many, the tragedy serves as a stark reminder to respect the mountain's power and to never take its challenges lightly. Yet despite everything, the mountains continue to draw people in. The allure of the wild, the promise of discovery, and the thrill of pushing personal limits remain as strong as ever. The story of the lost hikers is now woven into the fabric of the Khamar Daban range, a haunting presence that both warns and inspires. Those who venture into the wilderness do so with a sense of humility, carrying with them the memory of what happened in 1993, and the understanding that some mysteries are as enduring as the mountains themselves. In the end, the Khamar Daban tragedy is more than just an unsolved mystery. It's a story about the unpredictable, unforgiving side of nature, and the courage it takes to face the unknown. The mountain stands silent, its slopes unchanged, but the memory of that fateful expedition lingers in every gust of wind and every shadow cast by the trees. For those who hike these trails today, the legend is a companion, a quiet presence that urges caution and respect. As the years pass and the facts blur into legend, the story of the lost hikers continues to echo through the valleys of southern Siberia. It's a tale that reminds us how small we are in the face of the wild, and how some questions may never be answered. The Khamar Daban range keeps its secrets, and the world moves on. But for those who remember, the mountain will always be haunted by what happened in the summer of 1993. The Khamar Daban incident leaves us with a chilling question. What do you think truly happened on that mountain? Was it nature's wrath, a hidden danger, or something far more sinister? Share your theories and experiences in the comments below. I want to hear what you believe, and your perspective might just shed new light on this haunting mystery. If this story made you question what's possible in the wild, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Most viewers aren't subscribed, and that's the only way to make sure you never miss the next real-life mystery that could change the way you see the world. And if you're ready for more, click on the next video that's appearing on your screen. It's another true story that will keep you up at night. Thanks for watching. I'm Jack, and I'll see you in the next dark chapter.